Okay, so we've got a KWA Tar21 today. Really like this gun, but it's got a problem that I believe, after a bit of chatting around on a couple of forums and with some friends, is due to a problem with the hammer spring, and that it'll fire absolutely fine on semi, every single shot, really strong recoil, you know, the FPS it should be, but you pull it on full auto and it really struggles to cycle the bolt properly, and it didn't used to do that. It's only started doing it recently, and apparently there's an issue. I'm not sure whether KWA will actually admit it or not, or whether they just snuck out a stronger spring, but apparently popular understanding is that the hammer spring is a little bit weak in these, and at some point, perhaps the newer ones now, they've replaced it, but in some of the early ones, the hammer spring's weak, and over time it's just not enough strength in it on the full auto conditions to it to properly cycle the action, but in semi it's okay. So I'm going to try and strip this, because I've not actually seen a video on how to strip the lower part and the trigger and mech box, and we'll see how we get on. Right, so first thing is a few tubs. There we go. So the bolt's already out of this, so I'll put the rear pin out. Nothing in there. So it would look like these pins, first of all, seem to have a retaining spring on them. So let's see if we can get those out. Okay, so these are just a sharp hit with a punch. I'll just do that over the desk so they can come out. That's the first. Okay, I pop out and the spring clamps them into position. And you can start to see inside the mech box. Okay, so do a bit more investigation. Wow, okay, so that was a pretty major struggle to get the lower mech box out of here. It's taken time now. Have a look. Yeah, it's taken a good 40 minutes to work out exactly how to do it. I don't really want to do a video putting it back together and taking it apart again, so I think I'll just go over what you need to do. I've got a major bag of bits here, so I'll try and remember it in order. So the first thing is to punch these two pins completely out. Make sure that that one especially is right out, because it's quite easy to leave it partly in and holding in this frame over here. So if you hammer those two out, you've got to take the pin right out of there, and the way you do that is the pin has a small retaining spring, this piece, which sits in there and in there and around the pin. So when that's in situ in there, you need to get a small flat screwdriver and lift that pin out, and then you can pull the spring out, and the entire pin that normally sits in there. So there, that's all the pins at the back. You've got to take off the ejection port, well, the shell casing, deflector and the ejection port screws from both sides, and this plastic cover. So depending which side you've had your Tavor configured on, it's either going to be ejected left or right side. It's ambidextrous shell eject from the real thing. So you need to take out, effectively the plastic cover will be on one side, that piece will be on the other. They need to come out, and then you have effectively these bits there, which when it's all in place, screw on either side of there, they need to come out as well. So you've got those bits, what else have we got? It's got the rear pin. You need to take the front handguard off, screw either side, and if you've still got them, mine's only got one, so I've got it second hand. There's some little metal collar inserts as well that hold it. They need to be tapped, just tipped out, and the bottom piece comes off. Barrel wise, you can get away with it, but it's probably, if you take the flash side off, it's a bit easier. Take that off and take the upper piece out. I'll just find that. Yeah, so you take the lower off, 2 screws that go through here to take the lower piece off. You take the securing pin through there to take that off, and then you can pull the charging handle out with the charging rod. And for those who aren't sure, I mean, this has had a bit of a beating, this barrel lock pin, but that's normally sat in there. I'll tell you about how you get it out in a minute. You cannot normally it's sat like that, and you have to pull that and then put a tool in the other side and turn it. You cannot turn it with the charging arm rod in place. It stops this from turning. You just cannot do it, and that's probably what's happened with the previous owner, and he's tried pretty hard, and eventually realised you need to take that off. Yeah, so we'll come on to how you take that bit out in a minute. So that would effectively get you down to all the front end off, the charging thing inner and outer barrel would still be in at this point. What else? There's this plastic piece that sits in here, and I'm going to push it back in, but there's 2 little plastic lips that you need to just push them in, and then you can pull that out. That comes out. Obviously early doors, when you undo this you can unhook off the part, and it's in the gearbox over here, and it just comes off. So not all those bits. Let's just go through all the other bits. You have to take this piece out here, which is pretty straightforward. It's just I think it's, which way around is it? It is, I think that's the piece that's in this side, this chamfer, yeah, like that. I'm going to drop it back in. That's on the other side, and it's just a screw that goes through the 2, I think. So yes, that's out. These pins are out. Pin at the back's out. Plastic piece at the bottom. The bolt release pivoty piece taken out. There's a pin that you need to hammer out through there. Punch pin. Don't need to bother with the mag piece there. All the bits at the front, all the charging handle out. And then this piece, which is the bane of people's lives. So it sits in like that normally. Obviously you cannot turn it with the charging handle rod and everything in place. So what you have to do is, once that's out, you push that, and you do get a tool with the gun, but I didn't get it when I got it second hand. You get a tool that goes in there, but if you get a really fat bladed screwdriver, and you basically push that so it's not locked in there, screwdriver in there, and you can turn it, and you can see that when it's 360 degrees round like that, let's get it the right way around. So it's like that normally. And you rotate it 180 degrees, and then it allows you to pull all the inner barrel assembly and outer barrel assembly out. But what it does leave you with, as you can see on here, there, these holes line up with this, and you end up, you might be susty if you haven't noticed it already, you end up with this piece being pretty much the last bit that's through here, holding all this frame in the body. And if you turn this piece, if you just look at it, see it's got a lug on it, like that. Well, if you see that lug, the lug goes like that. I'll try and put this piece in without it being in the through the metal body. There we go, and then just turn it back round. Oop. Let's put it back through. So that's the position it'd be in when it's everything's installed normally, and that locks the barrel in. So obviously this piece would be sat in here as well, and this would be running through it, through these holes. So the very last bit to get all this frame out is this piece. So what you would do, say, it's going to be quite tricky to show this, with it all being in bits. I think what we'll do is, there we go. So let's just assume it's like that in place. Obviously that pin will be on the inside of here. Push that in, and using the tool on the other side as well, you turn it into the 45-degree position like that. You've probably turned it already all the way to 90, so you can take the barrel out. So you'd probably be turning it back at this point. Turn it back to 45 degrees, and then it doesn't push out easily, but as long as you've got it like that, and you should be able to see that pin through that hole, just get a punch from the other side and tap it with a hammer, and this pin will start to move like that, and eventually you can pull it out. It's quite stiff. And that is pretty much every bit that you need to then, this will then slide out the back. So it starts off, obviously, I'm not going to put it back in right now, so I want to have a look at what's going on with the trigger mech, but it would be roughly in that position inside the frame, and bloody really stiff actually. I had to end up just hitting it with a rubber mallet, just tapping it a few times. Eventually it gets to about here, and then it won't go any further, and it's because this bit here starts to catch on part of the internal frame in here, so you have to lift that up and then tap it a bit more, and it'll get to probably about here, and then it will catch again on a bit more of the internal frame, and you lift it up again, and then eventually, and you've got the mech box out. So what I'm going to do now is have a look as to why this hammer is a bit weak in full auto, and see if there's anything going on with the full auto sears and what have you, and see if I can find anything out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get all these bits, organise them and put them away in a box so I don't lose anything. Hopefully you found that useful, because I couldn't find a video anywhere or even a guide on Reddit, nothing about how to take this part out.